Should there be sound?
We should be able to see something there, and we are not.
Are you hearing sound?
Just nothing there? Shoot.
So this is fun.
We had sound earlier.
Yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't be having sound. It doesn't.
And when you speak,
Yeah, we did see bars.
we were just seeing them, and now they are gone.
Okay, so we'll pause it and we'll relaunch.
Yeah, I think you're right.
At least we look pretty.
Well, got sound right there.
There's us just chilling. Real quick, if you're able to hear us, just shoot us a quick message. We apologize for the inconvenience. Verlyn and I are not tech savvy by any means, so James is the only one here that is.
Oh, they have sound now.
Oh, we have sound now? Wow.
Did we say?
Oh, do we have to start all over? I mean, I don't mind talking more. That's fine. So, should we start over?
Don't start your conversation over, but you're going to have to revamp. Summarize everything you already did.
Oh, okay. Well, we were just talking about the role that psychology and religion play in our community, and just kind of what that looks like. Sorry, I'm just going to try and find the link.
And I was just saying that you were commenting that psychology and religion used to seem like they were separated, but I was saying to you that the root word in Greek for psychology is the same word for soul, so that the study of psychology is really the study of the soul. And somewhere along the line, that got separated out from religion, which to me was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
We are soul doctors, if you will, in the church, and we tend to the soul, and that's deeply personal, deeply psychological.
Interesting. Okay, let's find another question here. Oh, see, this is a good one. In what part of your life are you experiencing peace?
I think one of the things that I'm aware of is that I no longer feel such pressure to prove myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that comes with age, something that comes with years of experience, because I'm very aware of when I first got out of school, how anxious I was about, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Does anybody like me? Oh, wait, that sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit, doesn't it? But it was true. I wondered all those things. And now the reality is I don't really worry about that so much anymore.
Yeah.
Does that ring true for you or make sense to you?
See, I can understand that and I can appreciate it. I think I'm still in the middle of that, where I feel the need, maybe not so much at peace like the church, because, you know, I've been here for 2 years and I've established myself. But now that I'm branching off and starting a new, you know, going into a new field, I do feel the pressure to prove myself.
Sure.
Especially there's this weird, you know, kind of world where at the school that I'm about to attend in the fall, you know, 50% of kids are fresh out of their undergrad and are just ready to hit the ground running. And the other 50% aren't. And so there's like this weird kind of tension almost.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. I won't say that I have the confidence to just not prove myself to people.
Sure.
I'm not there yet.
I think that makes total sense developmentally as well. I'm a bit of a fan of Carl Jung, the psychologist, and one of the things that he says is midlife is really a crucial time where we sort of make peace with all those different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
He talked a lot about our public persona and our hidden shadow. And he talked about that the task of midlife is to make friends with your shadow. Well, I think in our shadow there exists all these parts of doubt and questioning and challenging that we might appear like we know what we're doing and we might be confident on a Sunday or in a classroom, but inside and on the shadow side, there's a whole nother part of ourselves that's anxious and nervous. And part of getting older and more mature, and not that you're not mature, but more experienced, yep, is that you get more comfortable and you make friends with that doubting part of yourself. Some people call it the self-saboteur. That person goes along with you for a long part of your life until one day you can tell that part of yourself to stop.
It seems very much so that in 2020, a lot of times people are trying to become friends with their shadow through the use of another person. So many people try to be comfortable in their confidence and their self-esteem through positive affirmation of a significant other. That doesn't seem like the most healthy way to get to the end goal, and you might not actually complete it 100%. Is that something that you experienced? Is this just a human kind of thing, or is this a generational thing?
No, I think it's a human thing. Jung said that if you want to know who your shadow is, think of the person you like the least.
Oh.
And then your task is to make friends with that person. So if
I really don't like that person.
most of us don't. And so he would say that the person you really don't like is half of who you really are.
Yeah.
And so your goal is to not focus on that person so much, but to focus on yourself and say, wow, what is it about that person that I don't like so much, and how is that me? How am I like that person?
Wow. That's a good little kind of practice procedure. We've actually had quite a few of them in the past few podcasts. The empty chair. Oh, yeah. Where you have a conversation with an empty chair. I think that has the potential to really heal. And what better time than now when we're by ourselves in this weird kind of world than to heal ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of this stuff you can do on your own, and I encourage that. I don't think there's a great risk. Sometimes if there's some real trauma in your past, I think it's really important to have a loving presence with you to kind of be with you as you do the work. Yeah. It maybe isn't essential, but it can be helpful and reassuring.
Do you still have trauma that still kind of shakes you to this day?
Not that I would say shakes me to this day. I've had plenty of trauma. I had some childhood trauma that took me 35, 40 years to work through, to be honest. And of course, being in the church is traumatic. I'm kidding. But there are moments that are stressful, and putting them in place, figuring out what to make of them is hard work, and that's where this whole part of working with an internal family systems model of that younger part of myself that was traumatized. I had to find him and work with him and help him, and he's doing quite well these days. Part of the reason I ride a Harley is because of the work I did to get healthy there.
Wow.
But in terms of other things, I don't feel great stress about other traumatic things that I'm having to work on now.
Yeah.
I will say I've had the benefit of a couple of really fantastic therapists over the years, and some guides and mentors as well. And I wouldn't feel as good about myself without them. And I also have to say I have probably the best spouse on earth in Kay. She's an amazing woman and has walked with me through this crazy life in wonderful ways. So.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's nice to hear someone on the other side of therapy. So often in it's weird gender roles. I just feel like as men, you're, showing some sort of weakness by saying that you go to therapy. And I've been to a therapist, and I'm not ashamed by that by any means. It's someone who is trained to help you. And, if you have a broken leg, you go to a doctor. And if sometimes I feel like the trauma in my past is like a bad relationship, and the littlest triggers, it doesn't like set me back to that place, but it reminds me of it, like a song. You hear a song on the radio and you're reminded of something where maybe that song was playing, or maybe it was just an influential song in the same time period. Yeah. It's just weird the way the mind works in that way.
Sorry, this triggers all kinds of memories for me too, but the school of thought called neuro-linguistic programming actually would call that an anchor. And they say that there are lots of things that create anchors. Songs, tastes, touch, smells. Yeah. You can be back 10 years, 20 years in no time just by hearing a song by Foreigner, for example.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things is that sometimes we even anchor fights by the hug we give each other afterwards.
Huh.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
And so they would invite you to be really intentional about, if you're making up after a conflict, to be clear that maybe the hug isn't the best way to do that, for example. But you're right, anchors are huge, those triggers like that. And I was thinking about this earlier today, that my frustration with the education process, I don't think it's just in this country, I think in general, is that we do a really poor job of teaching kids about emotions and teaching them what to do with them, how to work with them, how to manage them, because we don't have time and we don't have the personnel, the training to do it and do it well. I've got grandchildren that are reading at age 7. With those kinds of skills were really important. But it's very hard for me to sit down with them and say, well, let's talk about times when you're afraid and how you can where do you feel the fear in your body and what. But I think we should do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I think we should help our kids with feel, because honestly, the people who are in family systems theory say that almost all conflict is not about intellectual issues, it's about unresolved emotional issues. And the person I'm thinking of, Edwin Friedman, wrote a book. He was a rabbi who studied family systems theory, and he wrote a wonderful book about conflict and life within church and synagogue. And he said that people generally don't leave churches over theological issues. They do it over unresolved emotional issues. Well, I don't know how accurate that is, but when I first read that, it was like, oh, wow, I need to pay as much or maybe more attention to emotional process as I do to intellectual reflection.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's in that podcast with Judy Reinhardt, we did talk a lot about how you can help children process emotional things.
That's right.
I just think that is an emphasis that I feel like it's taken place a little bit more in my generation, and especially from the generation after me, is putting a little bit more of an emphasis on allowing yourself to feel and process things without being ashamed or embarrassed. They're feelings or emotions. You can't help them, right? Yeah. That's why it's called a feeling.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think that the piece, maybe I've said this before, I'm old, I repeat myself a lot, but the whole notion of curiosity, the more we can develop the capacity about being curious about our response, as opposed to reacting to our response. You say, wow, I'm really angry right now. I wonder what that's all about. If we can get there instead of, because I'm angry, I'm going to yell at somebody, it just slows things down and helps us process.
Yeah. I always used to mock at the whole take 3 deep breaths before you do anything. I used to think that was the silliest, stupidest thing of all time. Then I did it. And I was like almost mad that it worked so well. But
Here,
it really
take
does.
3 deep breaths right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's true. Very true.
All right, let's go something fun here. Okay, yes. If you could attend any concert, past or present, who would it be and where would it be?
Wow.
I'm just going to go ahead and say mine real quick. I have 2.
Yeah, go for it.
Johnny Cash in Folsom Prison, I think would truly have been amazing. Although I don't want to be an inmate. I just want to be a spectator.
Good point.
Or the Live Aid when it was Queen, Phil Collins, Elton John. I think that would have been incredible. Both of those times, cell phones weren't around, so you see pictures and images, and there's not a phone up and recording. They're just there. I just think that would be incredible.
Yeah, I would agree. And the first thing that jumped into my mind, I think I would love to have been there, but maybe in like a locked room would be Woodstock. There's something terribly intriguing about that, and also incredibly frightening about Woodstock.
Yeah.
But my favorite musicians, I think I would have loved to have attended a Peter, Paul, and Mary concert, and never got to do that. I love folk music, and a couple of the local folk artists, Peter Mayer, who we played some of his music and stuff. I've heard him probably a dozen times now, and I just get enthralled with that kind of stuff. Yeah. I like big concerts too, like big choirs. Oh my, I love a powerful choir. Yeah. Yeah.
There is something awe-inspiring about choir.
Yeah. Did you sing a lot when you were in school?
Yeah, actually, that's how so my mom ran a performing arts school. So she taught at a charter school in Twin Falls, Idaho, which is where I grew up. And the charter school didn't actually exist for my grade until I was a junior. So I did kind of the public school performing arts world. That's where I learned that I love being on stage, and I love public speaking, and I love engaging with people. But then I was in a show choir, which, like, looking back now, it's just pretty funny. But if you know my mom, if you know Kim, that she does the shows here, it was a blessing and a curse to have her mom as a teacher. I got sent to the principal's office at least once a week because she could hear my voice above everybody else's. So if I spoke like one teeny word, I was gone. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed singing. In fact, this was interesting. I measure, and this might not be the healthiest thing to do, but I measure moments in my life based on how much I sing. So I can tell that I am not happy with certain aspects of my life if I'm not singing on a daily basis. I mean, in the shower and the radio, there's just something about that, like, I really do feel like it's just me expressing how I feel in my emotions. And it's just fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it Martin Luther who said, those who sing pray twice? I think
I'm going to yield to you. Yeah. But
I think I've heard that
that's
quote.
a heck of a quote.
It's a heck of a quote.
Yeah.
And I actually think too, that the thing that I love about folk music is that it's poetry put to music. And I just think I love poetry. First of all, I think a good poet, here's a little piece of my past. The three roles of ministers is that they are to be a prophet, a priest, and a poet.
What?
And that role of poetry is to reframe words in a prayer or in a sermon in such a way that you have to think about something in a different way, because that's what good poetry does.
Yeah.
And then if you can sing that, I mean, it's like, oh, come on.
Are you a singer? Can you sing?
Yeah, I've been known to, yeah.
Tune in next week to hear Verlyn sing.
yeah, top 10 hits, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be about 2 minutes worth.
Hey, that would be a good 2 minutes. Okay, let's keep rolling here. James, do we have any questions of our Facebook?
Yes, Mark Zinkel wants to know, Verlyn, PPNM on 8-track?
So, can you repeat what Mark asked?
Yeah, Mark wonders if I have Peter, Paul, and Mary on 8-track.
Wait, what's an 8-track?
Well,
Just kidding.
Little before you were born, I actually, up until my mother's death in 2013, I had 1,500 8-track tapes.
Wow.
And I had 5 players.
Kay is still married to you.
Well, they were in my mother's basement, if that's
okay.
any indication. And when my mother passed away, we had to clear out her house, and away went the 8-tracks.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be back by now, but they're not. So, yeah, very funny, Mark. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I like that. That was good. So this is interesting. If you don't mind, can you give us a brief synopsis of your background in the medical field in a way? And then if you don't mind talking about patients that just left an influential mark on you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was working here at Peace, and I finished a doctorate in ministry in 1995 with a focus on marriage and family counseling. And what I really thought I was going to do was to start working somewhere in the Twin Cities area in a counseling center as a marriage and family therapist. But what I started to realize is that I liked theology too much, and when you're a therapist, you can't always go there.
Yep.
And so I hearken back to the days when I did my training at a psychiatric hospital in Western Michigan. I spent a year at this private psychiatric hospital training as a chaplain, and I loved the work. It's called clinical pastoral education. And I decided that after I finished that maybe someday I'd want to become an educator, supervisor. And so after I finished the DMin, which started to sound more like demon as I wrote that thesis, but I did finish it in 95. I took a year off, and then in 97, the church was gracious and gave me 10 weeks of sabbatical time. And I ran a group of students through the Alina healthcare system, and I worshiped at 10 different churches in the South Metro area just to get a sense of what was going on in the churches. And after I finished that, it became clear to me that was where my next phase of my career was going to go. Yeah. And in 2000, Alina hired me to work at United Hospital, and I worked there then as a chaplain and as an educator for 11 years, and then the last 8, 9 years at Abbott Northwestern. So I've been in the healthcare system for almost 20 years, or maybe 20 years anyway. And I'll have to go back to maybe the first year I was at United. There was a guy named Glenn, and Glenn was very sick, and he was on the cancer unit. He was going to die. And I went in to have a conversation with him. And we were talking, and he said something to me about he worried that if he'd been a good enough dad and all of that. And we had a conversation where at the end of it, I was describing to him, I think, the story of the prodigal son and all that. And and I said, what would have you done with your son? And he said, I would have welcomed him back just like the guy in the story did. And I said, did you hear yourself, Glenn? I said, that sounds good enough to me. And he kind of laughed, and his boys came in to visit, and I met them, and Glenn was discharged to hospice care. And I spoke to him once on the phone after he left the hospital, and then he died. And his sons called me, and they said, we just want to tell you that after your visit with Dad, he told us he was the chaplain, and he set me right. And it turns out that he often, when he disciplined his sons, he would say to them, I'm going to set you right. And so it was just one of those moments where if you ask me what I would want people to say about me when all of this is done, it's just simply that I made a difference for them. Yeah, that they got to see themselves in a deeper, more loving kind of way.
That's powerful. I mean, there's two things powerful about that. Of course, that's what you want for your life is remarkably admirable, and that's something that everybody should strive for. But then the other thing is that you were able to, I'm not going to say just comfort a dying man, but there's just something so important, critical about a father-son relationship that it's remarkable that was his last, one of his last real worries on this earth, and that you were able to see him through to the other side of that.
Well, thank you. It was a gift, and I think there are so many stories that people are carrying with them to their last days, and if we can take the time and listen, and if we can create a space for them to share those stories, they're just powerful things that need to be shared and dealt with.
Yeah.
How do you figure the law thing for you around that? How does that fit into your view of your role in the world? And
it actually all started with my grandpa. So my grandpa's an attorney down in Florida.
Okay.
So I was raised in Idaho, so we would go to Florida for all the vacations and everything. And it was, really weird interacting with him when it came to law because he didn't love what he did. He never found extreme life passion out of it. But he always told me, and this has stuck with me, to this day, is that he did it for our family.
Wow. He
did it so that our family could, be comfortable and not have to worry. And I don't have a relationship with my real dad. He, is just not present in my life, and frankly has never really been present, at least for the past about 14, 15 years. Okay. So to hear a man, which I admire and respect, say that he sacrificed, some of the greatest years of his life for the family has really left a very big impact on me. So I think that the direction that I'm going towards law is for sure going to go towards my passions, which is just like you said last week, you never strive to help somebody, you strive to care for them.
Yeah.
And so I would like to care for people in a world that is so, the legal field is so complicated and is so hard to just learn on your own that you have to seek help. And I want to be someone that people seek out just to help care for, in some of the worst times in people's lives, you really have a chance to kind of guide them through and see them on the other side. Yeah. And that should be pretty powerful. And just where you can go with that is pretty cool. The school I'm going to has an amazing environmental clinic.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I'm really passionate about the environmental issues that are happening in Florida. The Everglades is one of the largest state parks in the nation. It's one of the largest wet state parks in the world. So it's, it should be cool to see where that goes.
Very cool. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, but it's a big undertaking. So
It is. Yeah, it's going to change your life and your world in lots of big ways.
yeah, I will say I think this is the scariest thing that I've done.
Huh.
I'll jump in the water with 40 dolphins any day of the week. But the idea of going back to school after 7 years out of it sounds
I thought you were going to say it's because lawyers are sharks, or
Oh, well, hey,
Yeah,
no, they're just liars.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
James, do we have anything on Facebook? Any burning desire questions?
Mark Single again wants to know if Verlyn remembers when you and he did a duet.
Did you and Mark Single do a duet?
yes, we did it it was like a Christmas time, I think, or maybe Easter. Yeah, we did do a duet. Yeah. I say, listen, Kay and I sang a duet at our own wedding.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Is there videotapes?
Videotape?
I'm sorry. Is there an 8-track?
No, there's a cassette though.
That's amazing.
I actually have it, and
Oh, I love that.
we had for a lot of years. We had the tradition of listening to our wedding on our anniversary, but
Wow.
we kind of have it memorized now.
I've never heard of that tradition.
Oh,
Nope.
Ah.
No, I can't say I've ever heard of it.
okay.
Oh, this is a good one. This kind of touches on the father thing. What is something you wish your father would have taught you or invested more time with you in? Because you've lost your father.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty young. I was 35 when he died.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't have many regrets around any of that stuff. I just wish we would have had time to go deeper. I don't think we were able to say we loved each other until I was married and had kids.
Why do you say that?
It just wasn't done.
Yeah. Okay.
It just wasn't done. And I think I can remember seeing him cry twice. One was at his mother's funeral, and the other was at my ordination. And, I think he was a really fun-loving guy, and he could be goofy as all get out. But to have those heavier conversations, that just wasn't in our repertoire, I guess. So I think I don't have any sense of frustration with that so much, because I think you generally find the mentors and teachers you need. I just spent an hour on the phone with my mentor, Clyde, who happens to live up in Plymouth. But he was one of my primary trainers when I was learning to become an educator. And Clyde is sort of a father figure, and he's a colleague, and he taught me stuff and things that I just had no clue about that my dad couldn't have done.
Yeah.
So it isn't that I wish he had taught me those things, because I didn't have expectations of that. I just wish we could have had more deep conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And recently I made a trip to Europe and saw where his father was born, and I wish I had heard more stories about his father and his grandfather. And
So you did not know his father?
I knew his father. He died when I was 19.
Oh, okay.
And he only lived a mile and a half away. And I knew him, but, here again, the deep questions. And I don't know how come I have this kind of insatiable need to wonder about deep questions. I think people could misunderstand that about me. In fact, that I absolutely love questions. I think faith, when it's functioning well, risks big questions. And that isn't always comfortable. But I think it takes courage, and I have lots of questions. I always have. And so I wish I could have talked about them with Dad.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I found other people that I could do that with.
If you could have one conversation with him, what do you think you'd lead off with? What question do you think? This is like if you had one question to ask God. If you had one question, what do you think you'd ask him?
I probably want to know something about maybe what it was like. It's all about me, right?
Yeah.
What was it like the day that I was born? How did he react? How did he feel? Because I can remember when my own kids were born, and both the incredible joy and sense of being overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
This is a lifetime deal. And just to hear some of that from him, we have some letters that he and Mom wrote to each other before they were married.
Oh, wow.
And he's the most boring letter writer ever. And my mom was just hilarious. And, I know that he had lots of going on inside of him, but he just didn't have the skill to express it. He was an 8th grade educated farmer.
Yeah.
And he knew how to work hard. I mean, that's what he taught me, how to work hard. And that it isn't about it's when the job is done, that's when you quit, not when the hours are in.
Yep.
So I do appreciate that from him a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's not my school of thought, because when 5 o'clock rolls around.
Yeah, I never was a clock guy, and I still am not. And of course, ministry is great for that, because you can be here all day if you want. And
yeah.
The hospital, I always said there are people at the hospital 24/7, and they're all sick. So you could work anytime, all the time. I
think I was spoiled. SeaWorld, you're done at whatever time you're done, and you're not taking a dolphin home. And there's there's no home, there's no work to do at home. So the cutoff is very much
I never took patients home either.
That's probably good. Yeah. That breaks HIPAA somewhere.
It was a big transition from working in the church to working in the hospital. It was much more of a structure, no evenings basically, and that was a big change for me. I have to admit, I enjoyed having the weekends free. That was a wonderful change.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned the fear of going there. What do you do with that fear? How do you cope with that?
Oh, I just dig deep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What does that mean, dig deep?
I want to make the fear mine. I want to own it. I want to use it to motivate myself to do better. So usually I'll try to identify what exactly. So like, for example, I have a lot of anxiety about going back because there's friends I haven't seen in 2.5 years. And I don't know, there's some friends that I left, or I should just say some people that I left not on good terms with. And, who I was 2 years ago is drastically different than who I am now. And I'm nervous and I have anxiety over that those people still see me as that person 2 years ago.
Sure.
And, someone reached out to me and just said that is not something by any means that I can control. And it's difficult because I'm going from a very comfortable situation and I'm uprooting myself, weirdly enough, in a city that I'm just as comfortable in, but in a situation that I won't be. So, yeah, I'll try to identify the fear and use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Does that ever work? Like, no, not really, but I'm going to keep trying, right? So.
Well, and kind of what you're saying is befriending the fear. What is it there to teach you, and what resources are there, rather than to be afraid of it or to use it to distance yourself, but to embrace it, kind of. Yeah.
I think what I'm scared most of is that my success rides or dies on me. This isn't, having a staff at the church is amazing because if I'm having an off week, I have shoulders that I can lean on and friends around me. That's not the case for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
It is all, it's 10 out of 10 effort, 7 out of 7 days.
Yeah.
And that's just not something that I've accessed for quite a while. I feel like that's how I did my undergrad and I did really well and it got me a great job right out of college. So I'm hoping to kind of do the same thing.
So will you be sending us your report cards with your grades?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
actually, I lose all my scholarship if I don't get good grades. So
that's some motivation for you.
That's a price tag on the motivation.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. All right, so we'll start wrapping it up here.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask this question because I found this the most fun. If in 150 years, science fails to save us, and all that is left is a book about your life, what would the title be, and what would the blurb tell us about you? So the book, the description on the back of the book, what would it say, and what would the book be titled?
I think the book would be titled "Always Learning."
Okay.
And
okay.
What it would say about me is that I followed a lot of different trails after a lot of different things. How some people would describe it was that I was never satisfied, but I would choose to reframe it and say I was always curious about what else. This might be telling, but one of the other fields I'm really fascinated in is called emerging knowledge. And in that approach, what the counselor or guide does is they ask you, what is it that you want to work on? And as soon as you say it, they would say, and what else do you know about that? And they ask you that same question 6 times. And then they would say, and now that you know that, what else do you know about that? And so my curiosity is sort of like that.
Yeah.
I keep asking, what else is there about that? And what else is there about that? I just think you've heard me say before, curiosity is such a gift.
Yep.
And it can be a curse, but it's also a gift because it keeps life interesting and fascinating. And I just think the human mind is a place that we could explore for quite some time and never quite hit the bottom of the pit, so to speak.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that you're never satisfied. That's something that has actually been held against me in my life quite a bit. There's just been times where, fresh out of college down in Florida, I moved to California the next day. And I was there for 6 months at SeaWorld, and then I transferred over. And the people in my life in San Diego thought that life wasn't good enough for me, that they weren't able to provide that, and I left. The people in Florida thought the same thing when I came up here, and now the people up here are thinking the same thing when I go back. And you're right, it's not about that at all. It's just, I feel like you go into a situation, you learn all you can, you make the mark that you can, and then you move on. Yeah. And I think that's what, I hate to see or hear stories about, people when they're, the idea of a midlife crisis is crazy to me. The idea that you have suppressed, your curiosity, your imagination, and just your will for adventure for so long that you have to go and buy a $60,000 boat, or
a Harley Davidson.
Or a Harley Davidson. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's just a foreign concept, and I just don't have any intention of that happening. So I actually have a tattoo, and it's a T-Rex, and it's climbing. No, sorry, it's a Triceratops, and it's climbing Mount Everest.
Wow.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep, because the number one thing on my bucket list is to hike all 7 summits. So the 7 summits is the tallest point on every continent. I'm starting with Kilimanjaro in 2021.
Wow. Seriously?
Seriously. Yep, seriously.
That's great.
I'm excited.
I love it.
But it's just a reminder of I'm always chasing what seems impossible. And that has really kept me from being super stagnant in life.
Yeah.
But it is weird how people can hold things that mean so much to you against you.
Yeah, but I think too I think we're talking about personality types. I mean, there are some people that I know of someone that comes to my mind right away who said, well, those kinds of questions just don't come to me or don't call to me. Yep. And they're very content in their world, and it's nice and neat and it's manageable, and they don't stay up nights reading. But in my first church, I remember some nights where I literally stayed up all night reading psychology books because there were so many goofy people coming to my office, and I didn't know what to do with all the stuff I was hearing.
Yeah.
So I started buying different psychology books. I literally would stay up all night reading, just trying to figure out how to handle it. And once you go start down that trail, it's like, okay, but then if you have this, then there's another thing you could learn, and then this one. And to me, those questions are always right there. And I consider those gifts, quite frankly. Yeah. But other people would see those as tormentors. And so I have lots of respect for the different kinds of personalities. I'm glad Kay has put up with my curiosity. And
yeah, how many states have you moved?
Well, this is the 12th house we've lived in. Yeah. And she's seen me in school after high school, 4 years college. I've crammed seminary into 5 because I did an extra residency. And then I started at Western Michigan for a year, and then I went to the doctorate thing, and I did that, took about 7 years. So yeah, and then the CPE thing, that was another 5-6 years. So
wow,
I've been in school forever, the way it seems.
So we should all just find a K, pretty much, because she's really stuck with you.
She is awesome. She's a 6 on the Enneagram.
Hey. Well,
that explains a lot. She's very loyal.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to know? Anything else that you?
What's the most fun you're having these days?
Oh, I'm about to spend 2 weeks in Montana.
Oh, right.
Red Lodge, Montana, 2 weeks on just a plot of land, just going to hike every day. And and it is very exciting, planning tentatively the future. It's terrifying in today's, with COVID happening, It's scary to think about, but the opportunities that are going to present themselves, I'm very excited about. Yeah. What about you? How much fun? What's the most fun you're having? I mean, other than this.
Oh, yeah. Motorcycle rides. Weather's been great for that. I've been enjoying that. And I've just been enjoying the slower pace. We have a screen house behind your house, and we have a lot of lawn. And I just sit out there and look at the green and think of how good life is. So I don't need a whole lot to make me happy these days, quite frankly.
That's great.
Yeah. But I am going to miss you. I'm glad we're going to keep doing this on the podcast thing, at least for a while. But
every week.
It's just been a hoot having you around here and getting to know you. And I'm excited about your future. I think there's some really cool things ahead for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I've said this time and time again. I took it as a job, and it just became a family. And it will be, it just everything from the drive-by parade that happened a few weeks ago to just the emails. I just am very grateful for the time here. I don't know why. It's maybe because I didn't have this, like readily there, but I think about what I'm going to tell my son about how I grew up.
Yeah.
And I had a phenomenal stepdad who shared a lot of his life, with me. But if you guys listened on the podcast, his dad died when he was pretty young as well.
Yeah.
So, I just think about what am I going to share, and I will share memories from this place, and I will share the people that I met and everything that I learned. And that's just how much this place really means to me. So
that's great.
Should be good.
Thanks for your good work. God bless you, my friend.
Yeah, you as well. All you out there, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.